History isn't always made in grand halls or through loud protests. Sometimes it starts with something small, a broken taillight, a routine traffic stop. This is the story of how a simple ticket handed to a mother on her way home sparked a movement that would upend the cash bail system in an entire state. For generations, cash bail was standard: pay to go home or stay in jail until trial. But this system created two kinds of justice, one for those with money and a harsher one for those without. Freedom before trial depended not on risk, but on wealth. A minor infraction could spiral into a crisis for families living on the edge. For some, a small fine is manageable. For others, it's an impossible hurdle, leading to arrest, jail, and the loss of everything. One woman's journey through this system exposed its fundamental unfairness. Her fight wasn't just for herself, but for the principle that justice shouldn't be for sale. The change that followed forced a state to ask, is it right to jail someone just for being poor? The answer from the highest court was no, and it all began with a flicker of red light from a broken taillight. Sarah Jenkins was a mother, working long hours as a nursing assistant to support her two young children. Her old car was her lifeline, getting her to work, her kids to school, groceries home. One evening, exhausted after a 12-hour shift, she was pulled over. A taillight was out. The ticket, $150. For Sarah, it was a disaster. Her budget was already stretched to the limit. There was no extra money for fines or repairs. She took the ticket, anxiety rising. How could she pay? More hours meant less time with her kids, and skipping bills risked losing power or rent. The ticket wasn't just a piece of paper, it was a threat to her family's fragile stability. For people living paycheck to paycheck, a small problem like a broken taillight can be the thing that pushes them over the edge. Sarah's story is not unique. It's the reality for millions. The system didn't see her struggle, only her absence if she couldn't pay. That's how a minor traffic stop became the first domino in a life-altering crisis. For Sarah, the real cost of the ticket was far more than money. It was the beginning of a fight for her freedom. The weeks before Sarah's court date were filled with worry. She couldn't afford the fine, nor could she miss work to attend court. Forced to choose, she skipped court, hoping to pay the fine later. She didn't know that missing court would trigger a warrant for her arrest. One morning, police arrived at her apartment. In front of her children, Sarah was handcuffed and taken away. At the station, she tried to explain low wages, kids, impossible choices, but the system wasn't built to listen. Her original fine ballooned with new fees. At her bail hearing, the magistrate set bail at $500. For Sarah, even $50 for a bondsman was out of reach. She had no one to call for help. She hadn't been convicted of a crime. She was presumed innocent, yet she sat in jail simply because she was poor. The system didn't care about her story, only her ability to pay. Her children were left behind, confused and afraid. Sarah's life was unraveling, all because of a broken taillight and a system that punishes poverty. This is how a minor infraction can become a jail sentence for the poor. The cash bail system wasn't keeping the public safe. It was trapping people like Sarah. Her story was about to become a catalyst for change, and it all started with a simple, desperate choice. The moment Sarah was jailed, her life began to collapse. She lost her job after missing 2 shifts. No exceptions, no second chances. Her children were placed with a neighbor, but soon Child Protective Services got involved. The fear of losing her kids became overwhelming. Bills piled up. Her landlord posted an eviction notice. All this happened while Sarah was still legally innocent. Jail wasn't just confinement, it was chaos, especially for someone living paycheck to paycheck. The system didn't pause for her. Rent was due, jobs were lost, children needed care. Cash bail punished the poor before trial, creating a cycle of debt and instability. For Sarah, a few days in jail meant losing everything she'd worked for. The system was supposed to ensure court appearances, but it was destroying lives instead. Sarah's story was proof. The real cost of cash bail is measured in broken families and lost futures, and she was determined not to let it end there. After 5 days in jail, Sarah was at her lowest. Then her public defender, Maria Sanchez, saw the injustice in her case. Maria explained, "Holding someone in jail just because they can't pay bail is unconstitutional. A modern-day debtor's prison. The wealthy could walk free. Sarah stayed locked up." Maria asked, "What if they challenged the bail system itself?" It was risky, but Sarah agreed. She wouldn't just plead guilty to get out. She'd fight back. Her case could expose the system's flaws and help others trapped by poverty. With Maria's support, Sarah found new purpose. She decided to appeal her bail, not just for herself, but for everyone punished for being poor. The fight would be long, but Sarah was ready. Her story would not end in a jail cell. It would become the spark for real change. Maria filed a motion in local court, arguing Sarah's detention was unconstitutional. The judge denied it. "Standard procedure," he said. Undeterred, Maria appealed. Civil rights groups joined, seeing Sarah's case as a chance to challenge the whole system. With new legal support, they built a powerful case. Cash bail punishes the poor and people of color, especially women. The appeals court sided with the state, insisting bail was necessary for public safety. But Sarah's team countered with data. Other states had reformed bail without chaos. They argued for alternatives, text reminders, supervised release. The appeals court still refused to overturn the system, but the fight wasn't over. They petitioned the state Supreme Court, framing the case as a fundamental question. Can you jail someone for being poor? To everyone's surprise, the Supreme Court agreed to hear it. Sarah Jenkins, once just a mother with a broken taillight, was now at the center of a battle that could change justice for millions. The stakes had never been higher. The system was finally on trial. The Supreme Court hearing drew crowds, lawyers, journalists, activists. Sarah's story was front and center: a broken taillight, an impossible fine, a family torn apart. Her lawyers argued freedom shouldn't depend on money. The justices pressed both sides. Was cash bail really about safety or just about wealth? The state defended tradition, but Sarah's team showed it punished poverty, not risk. Months passed. Then the decision, a landmark victory. The court ruled cash bail as the default was unconstitutional. Pre-trial detention must be based on risk, not wealth. Judges had to consider non-monetary release first. Only those proven to be a real danger could be held. The ruling didn't end bail, but it ended wealth-based detention for most. Justice had a new definition. The Supreme Court's decision forced a complete overhaul of pretrial justice. Predetermined bail schedules for most non-violent offenses were gone. Courts now used risk assessments, not bank balances, to decide who stayed in jail. Most people charged with minor crimes were released on their own recognizance. Non-monetary conditions like check-ins or GPS monitoring became the norm for higher-risk cases. Jail populations dropped, families stayed together. Taxpayers saved millions. The money saved was reinvested in pretrial services. There was pushback from the bail industry and some officials, but early data showed no spike in crime. The focus shifted from punishing poverty to protecting public safety. The new system wasn't perfect, but it was fairer. The presumption of innocence finally meant something for everyone. Sarah Jenkins's fight changed more than just her own life. The end of cash bail for most non-violent offenses had a profound impact, especially for women and mothers. The old system trapped women, often primary caregivers, in cycles of poverty and incarceration. Most women in jail are mothers, there for non-violent offenses, unable to pay bail. When a mother is jailed, the whole family suffers. Children lose stability, families risk permanent separation. The new law keeps mothers at home, preserving families and breaking cycles of poverty. It gives women a chance to work, care for their children, and defend themselves from freedom, not behind bars. A minor charge no longer means a life sentence of struggle. Sarah's story reminds us justice is lived, not abstract. An unfair system for one is a threat to all. Change starts with one person daring to say, "This is not right." Sarah's courage didn't just change a law. It affirmed that freedom should never depend on the size of your wallet. And that's a victory for everyone.